flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First, we'll start with the minutes. Are there any notes or changes that need to be addressed? Hearing none, I will consider them as acceptable. Before we move on, I would like to seek a motion to postpone the resolution, grant application, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, bikeway and trail infrastructure on Holy Hill Road. This particular item is not quite ready yet. There's a little snag that came up in it, and I want to make sure that we give you the full rundown of what we need to do. We will, however, ask that the Jamie continue with the application, and they'll bring it back to us if we get accepted for acceptance of application. So that's how we'll get around that. So I'll need a second. Second, Carol Mary. And all signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, so we're going to postpone that. We'll do it for 30 days, right? That's the typical. We'll bring it back next month, and hopefully by then we'll have some resolution to that. Next meeting. Yeah, so 30 days. All right. The consent agenda as two items that we can group together. Apparently, I'll need a motion and a second on these. Motion Pridemore, second Conrath. Any discussion on these two items, these checks? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. Signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Okay, that passed. Then we'll continue on with the golf course quarterly report. Ms. Ludwig?
Yes, thank you. It is in your packet. All of the initiatives, it is in your packet, and all of the initiatives are on track. However, we do have with us today our head PGA professional and our assistant golf course, clubhouse supervisor. Sorry, not assistant. And I wanted to invite Craig Cernajeski up here to just give us a few brief remarks related to kind of an update of how the season's going and what he sees on the horizon, kind of headed into the end of the year. So I'm going to invite him up.
Craig, welcome.
How's everybody doing? Am I supposed to hit something? Huh?
Beautiful day for golf.
Oh, it's just been an unbelievable stretch of weather. Looks like we're going to get some rain, but we've been busier than all get out. So everything's good. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I can kind of give you a year-to-date summary as of yesterday of how we're doing compared to last year, if you don't have any questions or concerns.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the summary because I know
Sure.
we were running a bit behind with the rain we had in the spring.
Yeah, the spring was very wet. So this is year-to-date numbers as of yesterday. 2023 was obviously a record-breaking year. So was 22, 21, and 20. But as of yesterday, if you look at our big revenue sources, food and beverage is up $7,000 over last year. Carts are flat. Driving range is $1,200 up over last year. Lessons is up $3,500 over last year. Merchandise sales is up $7,000 compared to last year, and our current greens fees are up $31,000 compared to last year as of yesterday. So when you look at all the budget numbers and you look at a summary of what we do September 19th through December 31st, we look to pass all our budget numbers for 2024.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Can we assume that the budget numbers are up because of increased activity and not just because of any price increases that came along?
So greens fees did go up, but rounds of golf right now are up about 350 rounds this year compared to last, which means that's a lot of golf in the summer because we didn't have much in the spring. To make up 300 rounds in the summer is difficult because the days are long and you're always playing the same amount of golf in June, July, and August. But what you see is a trend of a lot of late afternoon golf. The tee sheet is booked until 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. and that is something that we haven't seen in the past. So the demand is there. We will see an increased revenue in the fall because we are not going to drop our rates like we currently do in October. So we are going to run the same rates, summer rates, all the way through the end of next month.
And I'm just going to ask a question related to, we do plan to bring forward the update to the 2050 plan, feeding the CIP for the golf course. Would you mind just talking a bit about your thoughts related to the simulators headed into the winter season and the project we're looking at moving up in the timeline?
So right now, this is probably 3-4 years in the making. So we introduced a simulator system in 2019 into 2020. We have one simulator in there. So what the whole idea is the simulator's right in the dining room. So people come in, we set up the simulator. I do lessons, I do club fittings, my assistant can teach, but we run a simulator league as well. We were able to expand that, but with the expansion of the simulator league, it leaves less time for player development programs such as golf for clinics and programs for high school golf for boys because they start in the spring. So we tried to cap that simulator league at 10 weeks to give them time to come in and practice. But the proposed idea is to expand off the west side of the clubhouse and that sunroom where it's an unused area of the golf course anyways, and kind of have a 25-foot expansion to the clubhouse that we could have a simulator or two simulators that are permanently year-round so that even in spring when we have to take it down because of the Hartford invite that has 48 teams coming to Washington County, we got to take all this stuff down so they can have lunch at the golf course. But if we had this built off to the side, we can still do programs and player development programs when the weather doesn't allow for in the early spring, late fall. And then when people come to the golf course in the middle of July and it rains, they still have an opportunity to spend more money at the golf course by playing in the simulator. That would be their full time. We can have kid programs because simulators are very versatile these days. It's not just golf. You can play soccer in a simulator. You can play baseball in a simulator. You can play basketball. You can simulate archery. So we can have all these things to kind of have kid programs throughout the winter and summer. And it's just a way to get people to the golf course more often.
So just to clarify, that you have not seen that yet, right? So any changes to projects, this one in particular, there's a roof replacement that we're trying to coordinate with our 2050 plan and the conversation about cash flow. So that'll be coming up as we talk about the capital improvement program. But Craig isn't always able to be with us, so I just wanted to kind of have him share while he's here today and answer any other questions you guys might have.
Supervisor Krebs?
For the complete the 2050 plan improvements and additional on-course improvements, doesn't have a due date till the end of 2025. Is there a reason that's so far out? It's like 16 months out.
Yes, so we have a draft of that. So essentially what we did is we took the thriving plan that had previously been adopted by the county and then simultaneously put into our capital improvement plan, and we've revisited it for some additional amenities. That he just gave an example of one that was not previously in the plan because it's more of an enhancement and less of a maintain the operation. So we've taken a look, we've added some additional, what I'm going to call, enhancements, nice to haves into the plan to take a look at how that impacts cash flow, along with trying to make sure and have a conversation with you about the appropriate amount of money that should be held by the golf course should we need to borrow for the future irrigation system. So that planning work, it's kind of an ongoing goal, but that will be brought back to you to keep it on track as part of prior to the next capital improvement program adoption, which then feeds the operating budget, right? So we actually have a plan, 50-year plan, feeds the 5-year capital plan, feeds the operating budget, and we try to keep all of those consistent. So as soon as weather slows down here, that conversation will be back probably this winter for you to kind of take another look at what that does to cash, and kind of what that conversation looks like. So
once we have that conversation, though, is that date correct that we won't officially like adopt a new 2050 plan until the end of next year?
No, but that goal and the targets within that goal, which you don't always see all of the pieces of it, also include the execution of certain projects at the front end that are currently in the 24-25 operating budget. So I think that's important as a manager for accountability to make sure that we say, you know, we also need to execute, and I'm trying to think of a real life example that's in it, but we also need to execute in the upcoming year the golf cart lease and the carpeting project and the lighting project, which are encompassed in clubhouse improvements. So within those targets, there's sometimes smaller targets that you don't see, if that makes sense. And so that will then execute all of those projects that are identified in the current operating budget. Does that make sense?
Enough.
Yeah.
So I guess basically to recap for everybody else here, it's just set that way to coincide with our current biannual budget.
Yes.
There we go. All right. Any more questions for Craig? Anything else new and exciting happening at the course?
Like I said, just daily fee, rounds are up. It's packed all the time. Just had a 125 player outing this morning, which they paid $100 a player. So that was kind of nice. And then when they were gone, I got the tee sheet packed till 6. So just another busy day at the county.
On the simulators, quick question. So are these simulators like the kind of ovaled out, play any course kind of simulator?
Yeah. So you're on a mat, you're 13 feet away from the screen. It's a 13 wide, 20 foot wide by 12 feet high. And yeah, you can play any golf course in the world. So when we're doing our simulator league, every week they're playing a different 9 holes from St. Andrews, Pebble Beach, name any golf course, players where they do the TPC Sawgrass. So they're playing places all over the world. They have 10-foot gimmies, so they don't have to putt, because putting on a simulator. Depth perception, they always complain about the depth perception. But, yeah, it's just an opportunity to keep playing golf year-round and keep growing the game.
So I'm a huge fan and person who goes to Stingers. Give a big shout out to Stingers here in West Bend.
Yeah.
They have a 4-base simulator system, and they do leagues throughout the winter. So anybody who might want to get a little bit more information about what they're about or what they look like or whatnot, I think Stingers would be a great resource for you to check out down in the Inn at Paradise. And they do really good business over winter. I mean, they're that used to be closed all winter, and now they're open because they have the simulators and they run leagues throughout the winter, and they do a pretty nice business with it.
Yeah, with our current setup, the reason we did it is to make usage of the clubhouse. You know, prior to me getting to the golf course, come the winter, the clubhouse just shut down. You paid all the heating. So now when we have revenue, food and beverage revenue, I'm not trying to compete with Stingers and Sticks and all the indoor places. That's not what we're there for. But we're utilizing the building. The players that come to our golf course to play now know they have another way to practice. My students and my assistant students have a way to practice. And the high schools who utilize our golf course come out and use our simulator. So I'm not in competition with Hartford Park and Rec, who has a simulator. It's not what I'm about. I'm not here to say ours is better than yours. I'm just doing it as an amenity that we can offer to the public.
Well, as an avid golfer who's completely unworthy of golfing at Washington County Golf Course, I can tell you this: I never believed in competition so much because I prefer to play at all different places. That's the joy of golf, is that you can go someplace new.
That's right.
So I don't think of it as competition, but opportunity. And in 4-base simulator, I mean, you know, you can get 144 rounds of golf on a golf course in a day, you know. So 4 simulators is a long ways to get to that kind of number before you're in any kind of competition with anybody else. Yeah. But I think it's very exciting, and I definitely would like to see what you're going to do with that. And hopefully the committee will get a chance to look at that and see what we can do.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you.
I like that 10-foot gimme.
Yeah, I could get that all the time. All right, we will move on to the Natural Resources Quarterly Report. Jamie, are you?
Yes, awesome. Thank you all so much. This quarterly report is new, and it is the first time that you are seeing a natural resources department quarterly report. In the past, it was broken down by division, and I'm excited to preview with you tonight. Will be announcing coming up some promotions within the natural resources department, and that co-align with, I think, some of the initiatives that we're going to be taking going forward. So for those of you that remember, we eliminated our land resources and zoning manager with the anti-crime plan. And then subsequently, there was a small amount that was kind of put into the budget related to some of the restructuring and duty realignment that we would need to do within the Natural Resources Department. So what we are doing, and I have provided you guys with a chart, we are trying to be a little bit more transparent about kind of who we are and what we do. We've taken a look at everybody and related to some of the initiatives that the county executive and county board have put out in strategic priorities. The big changes here are the promotion of our Parks and Trails managers to the Assistant Natural Resources Director. So those of you that know Logan Bliss, he will be now doing some of the higher level work, personnel work, in my absence, things that maybe Paul Sebo did when he was here that are of a higher level and require a bit more. In this department currently, the remainder of the employees, he directly supervises the two below him, Samantha and our aquatic invasive species. So he's also taking a step with the lakes and some of the water health initiatives outside of just the parks enterprise. He still remains primarily doing parks and trails manager job duties, but there is some work now in lakes and water health initiatives that you'll see. The other employees all directly report to me, but we have created team leads that you see here. We have hired Brett Scherer as our lead land use inspector, and we have promoted Paul Backus to our lead conservationist. So those two individuals are taking on some team leadership decision-making responsibilities, some accountability responsibilities for initiatives. Paul Backus will also statutorily serve as the county's conservationist for some of the obligations that we have. So that's very exciting. A couple other changes that I just want to point out. You see Stephanie Egner is now our soil and water conservationist. So we've kind of just went through the exercise of roles and defining program leadership and how we're going to be accountable. And so she is an excellent employee, very long tenured, and runs our Cedar Creek Farmers nutrient management education programs and producer-led watershed program. So she is our education expert. You see that there, and we're going to do some more project coordination in the water health initiative area for our other traditional conservation employees. So she's going to be doing a few more things. We also did add a lead parks maintenance worker related to some of the on-call snow and landscaping maintenance scheduling things. For those of you that know Bo Flitter, he's also a long-time tenured county employee. So no new positions here, just kind of a shake-up of what we look like and wanting to provide that to you. The report you have in front of you kind of goes through where we're aligning kind of the work we're going to be doing in this quarter and next year. So you see the Conservation and Heritage Grant Pilot Program, protecting 300 acres. This was a direct initiative from the County Board Strategic Priorities. And this is a goal from the County Executive and the County Board to identify ongoing funding for that. Balanced and countywide lake protection strategies deployed. So we're working on the water health met with all of our lakes, and so there's an idea here to really, take a step towards being more active in this area and supporting some of these volunteer boards out there in a more of a leadership type of a way than we have traditionally done with our conservation programming. Logan will be leading that. You see a very specific goal here for the first time of a vegetative buffer and runoff reduction incentive/recognition program. So that is something that's been talked a little bit about, but we'll be working on putting together a conversation and a program and a proposal for that, potentially coinciding with the budget discussions next year related to if that's something we would want to be doing. Installed conservation practices, so providing $500,000 in funding to landowners for installation of voluntary conservation practices. So these go hand in hand with the rural community or the Conservation and Heritage Grant Program. And we're going to be coming back with that program soon related to the benchmarks and the success measures, and talking a little bit more about how that benchmark dashboard for all of this kind of comes into play. The Lakefront Development Project is in here. We've talked about that. I will highlight that you should have gotten an email from me with some upcoming events. Shortly next week, by next week, you should have a Teams meeting that will follow on the acoustics design conversation for anyone interested in following that. But I'm going to try to send more of those event-specific emails just to keep everybody in the loop with opportunities to see or feel a little bit more of what we're doing. And then the last one, the award-winning water health education and increased points of contact. So we're talking about re-engaging our entire department around how we can influence the culture of balancing development and conservation through education, and then putting together a specific strategy to get out more, have better information, do more workshops, more social media, more materials, and be more looked at more as a resource related to kind of the key messaging area of natural resources. So those are the initiatives that are being put forward for the first time. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about that.
Supervisor Conrath, I know a lot of your constituents have reached out to me. So this will start to address those things that they've been concerned about. The PRD boards, Dave Baldus has certainly reached out to me. So this is the road we're on. We're now finally getting to some of this stuff. I know it probably took longer than they would have wanted, but nothing moves fast in government. But I'm happy to see that we are moving forward in this direction, and we are addressing this. So I hope that you take that back to your people and let them know. And do you have any questions as far as this goes?
No, not at this time. Thank you. But I appreciate this vision and overview, and the alignment of your team too, and creating the leads, just even for succession planning and just operational wise, points of contact. And the local PRDs too, I believe that they highly respect Logan and have a good relationship with him. So I appreciate that appointment too of him as the assistant director, or title, whatever you want to call it.
Are there any questions from the rest of the committee?
I have one.
Supervisor Krebs?
For the vegetative buffer and runoff reduction program, and then the next one, the installed conservation practices of for stormwater runoff. Are those, what sectors are those going to be geared towards? Is that like more ag related, development related?
Okay, so we already have an ag buffer program. The vegetative buffer and runoff reduction program is geared at lakes. That said, the first step, so the 3-month target, so I think as part of these initiatives, we've really gone back into kind of the accountability and what actions are going to happen. One of the first ones in that specific initiative is more conversation about what would incentivize you? What do we want to see here? What do you want to see here? What do the lakes want to see here? With an end goal to really actually develop a program that we can try to work with. So roundtables, is kind of the next step, because I think right now we have a lot of questions about what really truly would incentivize people, if recognition, different lakes want different things, if this is by lake, if it's countywide. So there's a lot of questions surfacing that I think is going to be, there's going to be some facilitation at the front end of that goal to help define what it is that people really want to do. The second one, installed conservation practices. So you can notice the difference in the accountability there. Paul Backus, that refers to, I think, more traditional on-farm conservation practices. So could be buffers, but could also be manure storage pits or other,
No-till.
yeah, well, other designed improvements that advance water quality. So if you recall, we're awarded the $600,000 trim grant. We have a few more kind of pots of money that, we have anywhere from $200,000 to $1 million years related to how much money we can get out the door to put this stuff on the ground. So, and it goes hand in hand with the Conservation and Heritage Grant Program, because when you acquire land, you also need to install the conservation practices if you want to see water quality improvements. So I think there's quite a bit of work to do in this area if we want to stay on track for putting those projects out in the community.
Okay, so for the vegetative buffer one, that's in Lake District areas, we already have the ag components funded in place for addressing some of the buffers. So this is going to be more towards other uses around the lakes and trying to improve their runoff.
Maybe, yes.
Maybe? Okay.
You can see where your mind is going, how different directions it could go,
Yeah,
right? And so I think
there's several ways to go with it.
there's several ways to go, and I think we have not yet determined which way the program recommendation will head.
As an example, during the meetings I had with constituents and talking with PRD and some of the stuff I read, one of the things they're looking at is lawns that go and extend all the way to the lake front. So then you get a lot of runoff that goes across the lawns, takes the fertilizers and all the rest of that with it, the phosphates and things like that into the lake. So what they're proposing is like sections of 30-foot, like wild grasses, native plants, those types of things that would break up that direct run by grass down to the water. And so this would then be allowed to soak up as much as possible of those nutrients and runoff to keep it from getting into the lake. So that's one direction that this program could take and certainly
Right.
Would improve water quality and hopefully.
And the conversation around understanding the hurdles. Is money the hurdle? Is the ability to do the project the hurdle? Is the information the hurdle?
Aesthetics.
Yes, right. So different
Education.
people might have different opinions on what might incentivize somebody. So that's, I think, where the conversation is. I think look for facilitated roundtables for those of you that were at the Housing 2.0 framework discussion recently. Something like that you would all, I mean, everybody at this table would certainly be invited to participate if they're interested.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to presentation and consideration of 2026-2027 Parks and Trails venue fee schedule.
What I'm doing, so. So Samantha Murray, just following your chart, is our Parks Business Services Manager. So really owns the wedding venues, shelters, reservations, and some of the larger revenue streams that make up the park enterprise. So does a lot of the contact day to day. So if she's going to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing with this rate sheet, which comes to you periodically because we're already booking outside of the budget cycle, if that makes sense, or people are starting to look to want to book 2026 and 2027. So it isn't something that we can wait until June to be talking about. All yours, till I jump in again.
Okay, yeah, like Jamie said, people are already reaching out about 2026 and 2027, so we're just looking at pricing. So there's a few exercises that I did and do every year to determine pricing, so I'm just going to quickly go through some of that. So the three main things, the three main factors when determining pricing are going to be current trends, venue comparison analysis, and then booking patterns from previous years. Trends, backyard weddings right now are big, DIY, so keeping it affordable, intimate affairs and early planning, non-traditional venues and unique experiences. And so why do we care about this? Well, our venues offer flexibility and allow couples to keep their events affordable. So you'll see how that'll come into play later on when we determine pricing. And then here's just a little snip of the competitor analysis. We took about 20 venues kind of around the area that are comparable to us, some barns, some more rustic venues, and then we did also do some out of Milwaukee just to see how we compare. And we focused on pricing comparison, amenities, and location and setting. And overall, our amenities fall short of many of our competitors, meaning we don't provide staff on site, we don't offer cleanup or setup, our barns don't have temperature control, there is lack of kitchen and prep space, and the barns don't have running water, so these factors result in more planning and cost from our customers. So maybe our venue's a little bit more affordable, but they do have costs elsewhere because we don't offer everything that other competitors do. Where we stand out is our flexibility for sure, and then our affordability and our unique setting. Once we don't offer one of those factors, we risk our competitive advantage. And then here's some of the 2024 booking data. Homestead Hollow and Sandy Knoll are two barns. They're about 85% booked last year. May, July, and late October are the hardest to book just because of weather. Like I said, there's no temperature control, so sometimes those months are hard. Glacier Hills was 95% booked between April and October, so by far our most popular venue. Winter weddings are always a challenge. So I believe booking at this rate tells us our price is right. If we were booking at 100%, obviously there's room for a price increase. If we were booking way under, then there's some areas we can improve on. And then on this slide, you'll see the blue highlight is where we're going to change pricing. Glacier Hills being 95% booked, like I said, will increase that price for sure. The Sandy Knoll barn is getting new siding, so we figured a price increase would be appropriate there as well. Homestead Hollow will not see an increase. We had the least number of weddings out at that location. We had an increase in Sunday weddings, which is due to the lower price on Sundays. And then I figured both those barns should be comparable in price, which they weren't previously. Homestead Hollow is about $1,000 more. So with the facelift at Sandy Knoll, those prices will now be comparable for 26, 27. So in conclusion, the price increases are projected to have a 4% increase on the venue revenue, which is equal to about $18,000. This will help us cover the increased maintenance and operational costs. It'll help us to purchase new tables and chairs and things like that for the venue. And these prices allow us to maintain our competitive advantage with affordability and flexibility. And that's all I got for you. So what questions do you have? Go ahead.
One of the questions I have is just through a few of these next door neighbors, and they were complaining because there's no place to throw garbage out. And there's like dirty diapers and stuff laying around in Glacier Hills area?
In Glacier Hills, yeah. We have a couple dumpsters out there that our guests are supposed to be using. At times they're full, but we always call those in, and they get picked up weekly. So there are dumpsters, yeah.
Oh,
there's 3 of them out there, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more thing, just before you guys act on this. So you do have the rate sheet in front of you. If you read the report, there is one other change in the rate sheet, which adds the addition of Gaydon Park to the park entrance fee for for consideration in the 2026-2027 timeframe. So the reason why we wanted to bring that forward is because there is planning work to stand up a camera, have conversations with local businesses, take a look at the launch out there and the kayak amenities, and put together kind of a plan of attack if that's something we're going to look at standing up. And so we put it on this agenda because it is something that came from the fiscal sustainability plan in the past and has had some recent interest, and really wanted to dive into that as another option for how our parks and trails are being used. So in the past, Gaydon was looked at originally and assessed for, should it be a priority park? Should it not be a priority park? What should be done with it? Should it be included? Should it not be included? It has an easement on it, which prevents development. So it's a scenic corridor. And so there really isn't a lot that can be done with this property related to, whether or not it could be sold or transferred when we took a look at it. It has to stay as open space. So it is one of those properties that I think at the time when we had the conversation around could it be transferred to Ozaukee Washington Land Trust, what are the options around it, we ended with for now, it's being used as a kayak location of the Milwaukee River, and so we're just going to do nothing. And so this is a change in that direction to include it and make it part of the annual park system program. We know people are using it as a pickup and drop-off spot for kayaking, and we think that we could look at making some improvements out here and looking at that amenity differently. So it's on this sheet. I didn't want it to be glossed over because it is a pretty sizable change that would be proposed in this rate change sheet.
Do we have any kind of sense of how many people are launching and or recovering, or excuse me, if any businesses might be? Because I know there are kayaking businesses that are out there on the river as well. And I don't know if they're utilizing our park space or not. So I guess, do we have any sense of that?
Yes, we do believe that it may be an area where we're inconsistent. So we do have contracts with other businesses that operate in our parks, like the Tap Yard, like Paddle Break, kayaking. And it is an area where I think we want to do some more research and take a look at that, have some conversations, really get a good handle on that. Right now, we have anecdotally usage on certain weekends or peak weekends, but we don't have a lot of real good data. So I think we wanted to float it before we started having those conversations in the public, that we intended to do so with this group and get any feedback that you had.
Okay, anybody have any thoughts on that?
I have just pricing in general comment.
Absolutely, go ahead, Mr. Krebs.
So, going back to the shelter rentals, it said revenues would increase 4%. What kind of percentage is the actual rental fee increase looking like? Because what's in the blue, that's the new pricing.
Yes, so it's about $300 of an increase from the previous year.
Okay, so like just to take Glacier Hills, the top one, which is 5,700 right now, it's in our current budget cycle, it's a 5,400
Yeah.
range.
Yes.
Just trying to get a feel for what that is.
So if somebody rented this space for, in 2025, they just pay the price that it's right now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're already contracted, so this will
Okay.
only be like 2026, 2027 new contracts. Yeah.
Have we signed any contracts for 2026 yet?
No,
or
we
is
have a
it
lot
more
of-
reservation, just kind of a temp reservation at this point?
Yep, yeah, we have a lot of people kind of like holding dates until we have this confirmed.
Okay. By passage, if we approve this today, does the county full board have to approve this, or is us passing it enough to start signing contracts.
Right, yes.
Okay,
Typically, the rate changes just came to the committee.
okay.
Supervisor Mary?
Yes, the credit card fee, this is an add-on that we're making them pay now. It's not being absorbed by our fees.
Correct. We're adding it on. If they want to pay by card, they can pay by cash or check without a fee.
I have a
Supervisor
question.
Conrath?
Thank you. You spoke of Homestead Hollow and its utilization. Could you extrapolate on that a little bit?
There's a barn out there.
Yes, yeah, I'm very familiar, but
Yeah, we do all kinds of events out there in the barn. So we'll rent it for a single day. We'll rent it for a weekend package during the week.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'll try and be a little more detailed. You spoke of that has like lower usage or something? You
Oh,
said about
yes,
the percentage of its usage?
Had the least amount of booked weddings at it. So it still had a lot of bookings, but out of the three, it had the least amount.
Do you think we know the why?
I think I had thought it had to do with pricing because Sandy Knoll is kind of the same. Have you been over there by that barn?
Yes.
So that one's pretty similar, same amount of people can go in there. But the pricing was like $1,000 cheaper over at the barn at Sandy Knoll. So people are choosing that Sandy Knoll over Homestead Hollow because of the price difference.
Okay. Or like the populations of people, who are we drawing to make these reservations and utilize the barns for events? And
All over. There's a lot of people from Milwaukee County coming. Sandy Knoll's a little bit further out there, so
that's
we're
why it surprises me with Homestead Hollow's
yeah.
location.
And Homestead Hollow has a lot more competition. I think a lot more venues in that area, and a lot of people will go to Milwaukee then instead. Whereas Sandy Knoll's kind of secluded. Like, there's nothing really out there. Lac Lorraine, but other than that, it's kind of on its own. So we'll bring people from Fond du Lac area.
It's tough when you live in such a beautiful, lovely area. Everybody wants to be us.
Yeah. Any strategies to try and maybe increase Homestead Hollow's utilization?
Yeah, we can look at the amenities in there. We're offering more flexible rentals, whereas we did like a weekend package or a single day. Now we'll do 2-day. So we're just trying to be a little bit more flexible that way as well.
Or advertise?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of marketing. So yeah, going to bridal shows. I go to usually 2 or 3 a year, and we'll promote it there. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Pridemore.
So your annual park pass for the first one then for residents, that went up how much more, 4%? Or that's just the regular price that they've always had, 35?
Yes, so we did make an increase to the park entrance fees in this budget. This change in front of you, though, is only the venues, and then that one's highlighted because it's the addition of Gaydon. So it's not a price increase on the sticker right now. If we were to propose a price increase on that, it would be during the budget. So we really do try to reserve that for that conversation. It's really just the unique nature of these needing a decision prior to budget time. So the annual park pass sales do not have any increases or
Okay, 'cause you
changes.
see it's blue highlighted.
Yep, $7. It was $5 in 2023. 2024, it went to $7. It will probably hang at those prices for a little bit.
That's not bad.
Supervisor Krebs.
With the addition of Gaydon Park, is that going to be not until 2026 that would take effect? For that one too, we would have the summer of 2025 to get set up for it.
That's the thought process now, is that we would start kind of doing the legwork on it, maybe putting a camera out there, having the conversations, but we wouldn't start actively enforcing it until that point. So we just wanted to float it so that if we start having those conversations and alluding to that, we can warm people up to that.
So this might authorize it now, but obviously it wouldn't take effect right away. It would probably be a while, if at all, or?
Yes, I mean, this is the 2026, 2027 fee schedule. So the fees and rates are set by the county board, and right now do not include Gaydon County Park. So I think that, we would be intending to set it up for implementation with the 2026 season, which seems early, but because we were bringing this rate sheet to you now, we thought, what a good day to just have that conversation.
Any more questions on this? Okay, well, we'll take a motion on this to accept the fee schedule. We have a motion. Supervisor Pridemore. Do I have a second? Second, Supervisor Conrath. All right, so all approved, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that passes. All right, we will move on to Kildare subdivision. We need a motion and a second on this? Yes, okay, so I'll take a motion and a second. Supervisor Pridemore and Supervisor Krebs second. And
all right.
Go right ahead.
Good evening, everybody. So tonight I have Kildare Estates for you to consider. It's a final plat. Previously it was Holy Hill Residence, but then there was a name change because I believe the town of Erin requires some type of Irish heritage name, so there was a name change. But this was last seen. The preliminary plat was approved August 15, 2024. This is a 5-lot, 1 and 1 outlot subdivision in the town of Erin. It's about 34.34 acres in size. There's one access point on that State Highway 167. The soil tests were all good and approved by our land use inspectors. In the preliminary plat phase, there was one condition put on it. The soil grading was going to be over the septic field for lot 5. And so therefore we were requiring new soil tests. The developer went ahead and actually undid that error and moved the soil grading so they aren't building over the septic field. So we had requested new soil tests, but now we're not requesting that anymore. They've kind of fulfilled that requirement. Then also lots 1, 4, and 5 are all within the shoreline district and outlot 1. They have been approved for a shoreline permit for grading activities. And then any subsequent building activities, they have to do subsequent shoreline permits. And then all entities have approved this final plat. So that's the town of Erin, the Department of Administration, and the extraterritorial jurisdiction, which is the Village of Richfield. They have all approved it. And then it also has been issued in an erosion and control and stormwater management permit. And they haven't implemented those stormwater management activities yet. They're just holding it with a cash bond. And with that, there was one, not a major change that we requested that the developer made, but basically if you look at the final plat, there's several notes on there, and you'll look on the left side, there's outlot restrictions. We had requested that they change that restriction language to basically say that the outlot 1 is being owned by a 1/5 undivided interest with all the lots. So the reason for that is because in our stormwater management ordinance, it requires that, outlot 1 has a stormwater management pond on it that is being, all the lots input into that stormwater management pond, and therefore maintenance and any type of upgrades or any type of activity that would require money and so forth, it's better to have them all own it versus 20 or 30 years down the line, we're having issues where only 2 lots own this one stormwater management pond, and now they're confused on who's paying for it and fairness and so forth. So in our ordinance, it says that it has to be like that. So we just made that change, and they've made that change. And due to that, we don't have any conditions for this. We're just recommending that it be approved outright. So I'll take any questions.
Does the committee have any questions? Supervisor Krebs?
The first one, this is according to the first page, this is going to be a public roadway, correct?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Just in the town area, and there's a lot of private drives, but this one here is noted public, so I just wanted to
Yep.
confirm that. The second one is for outlot, or for lot 4. There's a drainage easement
Yes.
that kind of cuts across where, not really seeing the topography, but where the buildable site is compared to what the access would be. From county code perspective, what does that do for that lot for them to cross that easement area, or what do we have to be aware of in the future to watch with that?
That is a good question. So,
Because you're
Yeah.
entering, I can't find the directions here, but we're entering on the left side of that lot, looking at it on paper, but the majority of the rest of the lot is on the right side of the easement.
right.
I'm
And,
wondering if they put a driveway across there.
right. It'll be a driveway across that, and it'll be an easement for that. Just to access out lot 4, sorry. There weren't really any concerns brought up for that, at least at the town or any other level. But at the county level, we didn't see it as a concern either.
If it's a drainage and storm sewer easement, I'm assuming there's a swale there or a ditch of some sort.
Right. Or, ditch to the stormwater pond. Yep.
So who's going to monitor that in the future to make sure that the future owner doesn't decide to build that or alter it in a way that would affect the rest of the subdivision?
I'm not.
So, yeah, I let us go back, but we'll touch base with the town building inspector. And essentially, these plans will come to us, so we'll just flag that. I mean, you're just asking, because it's obviously in the construction that they would need to be concerned about that.
Just making sure, because if it's an easement, whose easement? It doesn't note on here whose easement that is. Is that the subdivision's easement? Or is that a town easement or a county easement?
It would not be a county easement.
No.
Okay.
It would
Just
be a public
whoever owns that, making sure that if there's alterations to it, the other
And-
lots are responsible for their 1/5 share.
Right. And that would be within the stormwater management plan, and that's also been approved by our Natural Resources Department, or Land Resources Division.
And maybe this is a mood issue, but just not seeing it physically, I'm only looking at paper, so I don't know if it's really a major concern or not, but.
Right, and within that plan, it would outline the maintenance and who's in charge of the maintenance and what should be done.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, we'll vote to approve. Signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And it passes. Okay, moving on. Resolution, grant application. Oh, that's the one we got rid of, isn't it? Yeah, okay. That's the one we already accepted. So I guess we're going to be, our next meeting is Thursday, October 17th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. This meeting is adjourned, subject to call of the chair. Thank you.